The sun was gentle that morning, warm enough to feel alive, but not too hot to press you down. White chairs were ranged in neat rose-beneath string of fluttering blue and white banners that read, St. Eliach's Orphanage, 50 years of laughter. A choir of children stood in pressed shirts and floral dresses, nervously rehearsing their songs as the first guests arrived. Coffee in hand, and small talk in the air. On the surface, it was just another heartwarming local event in small town Pennsylvania. But what happened in the next 20 minutes would shatter the illusion that had clucked St. Eliach's for decades. And it would all begin with a single bark. You know those moments where something feels off, where the colors are too bright, the smiles too forced. That was the morning of Rachel. Langley felt it. She wasn't a local. She and her K-9 partner, Sheda, were there as a courtesy from the county sheriff's office, offering a quick demo for the kids, something light. But the moment they stepped through the gates, shadows ears perked up in a way Rachel and since the last trauma call day responded to. The ceremony kicked off as expected. Music, laughter, applause. The mayor gave a DIY speech about tradition and generosity. Parents clapped. Полетели. Reporters scribbled notes for a fluffy sandy feature and then the orphanage director stepped onto the small wooden stage. Harold Whitmore had run St. Eliach's for over 20 years. Tall, thin, and always in a navy suit. He had the voice of a preacher and the handshake of a politician. He smiled. Big, too big. And when he took the mic, the crowd leaned in with affection. But Sheda did something that changed everything. He barked. Not once, not twice, but in a furier's guttural RHYTHM. That sent a shiver down Rachel's spine. The hairs on Mrachnie's back stood up. Mrachnie's body was tense, nose pointed directly at the stage. At Whitmore, every instinct in the dog screamed. Danger. Rachel took it. The leash. Sheda down. Hatsinauch. She whispered, embarrassed, smiling awkwardly at nearby parents. But Sheda wouldn't stop. He growled, then lunged, slightly horrored, the leash tightening. In Rachel's hand, Itmali's voice faltered for a second, visibly shaken. He tried to lay it out. Looks like someone doesn't like my corner, he joked. A few people chokered, but it didn't feel right. Then a strange thing happened. One of the younger girls in the front row, maybe 9 years old, started crying. Not a small whimper, but a deep trembling sob. She looked. Sheda, then up at Whitmore, then back at Sheda again. And she wasn't the only one. Several children turned their heads away from the stage. One boy suddenly slid behind another kid like he didn't want to be seen. Rachel felt her chest tighten. Shit. Then on the horse long enough to know when something didn't add up. Sheda wasn't reacting to a noise. He wasn't agitated by excitement or movement. He was locked in on one thing. Harold Whitmore. Rachel finally stepped back, pulling Sheda harder from the crowd, whispering reassurances into Mrachnie's ear. Even as her mind screamed with questions, she tried to focus on the Reminder of the event. The singen the speeches the overseas kick, but it was. Nouse. Shada's reaction caught in her. Hit, and the look in Toskit's eyes. Haunted her. Later, as guests mingled and the crowd thinned, Rachel sat beneath a tree near the courtyard, lighting shade drink. Water from a bowl, she stared toward the old brick orphanage building, its peeling paint masked by balloons and decorations. She couldn't shake a tea. Something was buried under the surface. A voice interrupted her thoughts. That was strange back there, said a woman in a modest cardigan and name tag that read Elaine, case manager. Rachel nodded. Shada's never done that before. Is trained to detect fear, trauma. Sometimes even residual stress, but that was something else. Elaine looked down. Is a smart dog. Then she hesitated. Some of the kids, here is scared of. Director Whitmore. It's not something you're allowed to say out loud, but they flinch when he enters the room. Some even wet the bed the night before it. Inspections. Rachel froze. Has anyone ever reported? Elaine caught her. Auf with a whisper. Don't. You don't know how this place works. He has friends, powerful ones. The last social worker who asked too many questions was gone within a week. Just be careful. Rachel glanced at Shada, who sat perfectly still, as he hit her again on the building. It was like he was waiting for something. If you care about stories where animals uncover the truth and save lives, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Heroes for Animals. We bring you real, emotional, and unforgettable stories that deserve to be told. That evening, Rachel returned to her department office and reviewed Shada's behavior logs. It never shone aggression toward a civilian. Each news background included search and rescue after Hurricane Ian, and he once found a missing girl buried under rubble, but never before had he barked like that. Like something inside him recognized a predator. Rachel was no rookie. She trusted her instincts and shadows. The next morning, she drove back to St. Heliers without permission. Just a follow-up, she told herself. Shada needed to stretch each's legs anyway. But as she approached the side entrance, she caught sight of something that made her stop cold. A boy, maybe 12, stood in the garden. He saw her, then quickly turned away, but not before slipping something into each knee's pocket. Rachel called out, "He there, I'm Rachel. This is Shada. Want to pet him?" The boy hesitated, looked round, then slowly approached Shada. Uegit, itches tail gently, letting itches body in a calming posture. The boy's hand trembled as he reached out. "What's your name?" "Ben." "That's a good name. Ben. Do you like it here?" He said nothing. Just stared at Shada, eyes glistening. Then he leaned in and whispered something that chilled Rachel's blood. "He barks because he knows." Rachel knelt down. "What does he know, Ben?" Ben reached into his pocket and handed her a folded piece of paper. Inside was a crayon drawing, childlike, robot. Unmistakable, a tall man, a belt in one hand. A small child on the floor curled up crying. And beside them, a dog. Standing between there and barking. Rachel. Looked up, but Ben was already walking. Roy, vanishing behind the garden. Hedges. Shadow stood beside her. Unmoving, eyes locked on the outer furniture. Doors. And in that moment, Rachel. Langley realized. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The next few days were a blur of knowing. Thoughts and its ongoing. Rachel. Langley isn't supposed to go back to. St. Years. Her visit with Shadow hit. Ben off the record. No paperwork, no clearance. Just instinct. But the image of that crayon drawing haunted her, especially. The way Ben had said it. He barks. Because he knows. Rachel had seen a lot. In her 12 years as a K-9 handler. Lost. Hikers, drug busts, domestic cases. But this was different. This wasn't about evidence yet. It was about shadows. Whispers, children who wouldn't speak. Above a whisper, and a dog who barked. Not from Caramond, but from something deeper, something primal. Back at the sheriff's office, Rachel's partner, Officer DeMarca, noticed her silence. You've been running Shadow. More than usual, he said one morning as she returned from another unsustained visit, trying to clear each knee's head. She light on clipping the lash. Shadow walked beside her, but kept glancing toward the squad car as if waiting for another trip to that our furniture. DeMarca raised an eyebrow. You know, you're not supposed to interfere with child services, right? You start packing round there without a cause and the press will shoot you down. Rachel didn't answer because something didn't add up. The director, Harold Whitmore, had been praised for his strict but effective leadership. That phrase showed up in every article she read. Local journalists loved him. School board reps called him a steady hand in turbulent times. And yet, kids were afraid to be near him. Shadow trained to detect fear and trauma, reacted to him like he was a loaded weapon. She couldn't forget the girl who cried during the ceremony or the boy who handed her that drawing. So, she dug deeper. That afternoon, Rachel parked across the street from a small public library and pulled out her laptop. She asked on Dutch, but she called in a fever with a friend who had access to social services files. What she found made her stomach tighten. Over the past 15 years, St. Years had quietly transferred out more than 20 children without formal paperwork being filed in time. Most went to other orphanages or emergency placements, but the reasons given were vague. Behavioral disruption, incompatibility with group home dynamics. Some were simply listed as early exits. One girl's name appeared 3 times. Lucille Jenkins, transferred at AG. 9. No hoarding placement, no adoption records. Rachel leaned back in her car seat. Something was being buried. Not just mistakes, patterns. She reached for her phone and called Elaine, the case manager who had pulled her aside at the ceremony. Rachel, Elaine answered cautiously. I need to talk, Rachel said. In person. Elaine hesitated, not at the hour furniture. Made me be wise a food truck on Elm. I get a break at 2. It was cloudy by the time they met. The food truck's fryer Hist behind term, masking there. Conversation as they sat at a picnic. Bench, took office between term. Elaine. Look tired, more tired than the last time they spoke. Are you and back, Rachel? Admitted. Elaine didn't look surprised. And a boy gave me this. Rachel slid the folded drawing across the table. Elaine. Appenity. Her lips pressed into a hard line. She nodded slowly. It's been, she said. It's only been here a year, but it's things. I tried to report it once. The board told me I was misinterpreting trauma responses. Said Harold has a firm but unnecessary method that he brings order. Rachel leaned in. You believe the kids? I do, and I believe that dog of yours. So something the rest of us keep ignoring. Elaine wiped a tear from the corner of foray. Here is a closet in the east wing, she whispered. They said to call it the quiet room. Said it was for kids who needed isolation. It's not supposed to be used anymore, but the door is always locked. Ivy heard cries behind it. Rachel's stomach turned. Has anyone gone in? No. Wonders Steve torn a blind. You're told to stick to our roles and follow the chain of command. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. Shadow paced the apartment, ears twitching. Wrestlers. Finally, at 3 часа ночи, she stood by the back door and said, "Let's go, boy." The orphanage was silent when she arrived there. She didn't go to the front gate this time. Instead, she parked behind the old maintenance shed and entered through a broken fence. Shadow stayed close, alert, ears up. Inside, the east wing was cold. The hallway lights flickered, buzzing faintly. Rachel knew it was risky. She didn't have a warranty. But sometimes when the system won't move fast enough, you have to follow your gut. She found the door Elaine hid. Describe it, plain, grey, with a tarnished brass knob. A child's sticker peeled off the frame. Shadow approached it slowly. Nasla to the ground. He sniffed once. Then again, then sat down. A line escaped mrachne's throat. Rachel tried the knob. Locked. She pulled out a multi-tool from her belt, something she always carried. Habit from the academy. After a few tense seconds, the lock gave. With a click, she opened the door. The room was small, dark, the kind of space you'd expect to store mops or boxes. But this wasn't a storage closet. The floor was bare concrete. The walls were scratched deep by fingernails or something sharp. There was no light inside. Just 18 meters intent. Torn, shoved against the back corner. Rachel's breath caught. Shadow let out a lag roll. A broken shoes lay in the corner. Beside it, a crumpled drunk. Barely visible. She picked it up. It was another child's drawing. This one showed a box. A person inside. Crying. Outside, another figure stood with something in their hand. A belt, a stick. It was hard to tell. Rachel stepped back and closed the door. She didn't need a warranty to feel the truth. The next morning, Rachel brought the evidence to her captain. He wasn't happy. You broke protocol, Langley. You Entered a private institution without cause. No warranty, no probable. As respiration. I hit cause, Rachel said. Quartly. That room was used recently. There are scratch marks. Hilles no. Justification for lacking a child inside. A space like that. I have witnessed. Testimony. I have visual evidence. And I have a dog trained to detect residual trauma who reacted to the director more aggressively than I've ever seen. The Captain Rabbit itches tempros. You know how this works. That our furniture has donors. Lowers, a board. You want to go after them. You better come with a hell of a case. Rachel looked him dead in the eyes. Tierney built one. That evening, she drove to the edge of town. There was a diner there. Greasy burgers, weak coffee, and cheap blinds. A teenage girl sat at the far bus. Erlon, hood up. Rachel slid into the bus across from her. Lucille Jenkins. Rachel asked swiftly. The girl didn't look up. I'm not a cop. Not right now. I just want to know what happened to you at St. Heliers. There was a long pause. Then the girl spoke, barely audible. Yes, he still uses the quiet room. Rachel's breath caught. Lucille looked up, a stared beyond her ears. You want the truth? She said. You're going to need more than a badge. Rachel reached down. Shada sat at her feet, silent but watchful. I've got him, she said. Lucille looked at the dog, and for the first time in what felt like years, she smiled. Lucille Jenkins stirred her coffee. Slowly, a switched on the spoon as if afraid to make a contact with what she was about to say. Rachel Langley didn't press. She knew better than to horse a moment like this. Someone's needed silence before they could speak. Across the diner bus, Shada rested. Rachel's feet, combat watchful. The dog had barely moved since they sat down. As if he too knew there was heavy with something that shouldn't be rushed. Lucille finally looked up. I was 9 when I got to St. Heliers. Am I mum yet? Of an Averdase and am I that was in prison? No one wanted me. Rachel stayed quiet. Just listening. At first, it seemed okay. Food, a bed, structure. But then, things started to change. If you broke the rules, talked back, hit an accident. In bed, even cried too loud, hit sick. You to what they called the reflection room. Rachel flinched slightly. That's the closet, right? The one in the east wing. Lucille nodded. I'd tell you ye. Was you hold, that good kids never. And that it was the only way to make you better. And Director Whitmore. Lucille's eyes went hard. He never raised Ichnia's voice. Never hit to. He just looked at you with that smile like he already knew you were going to disappoint him. She looked through her voice quieter now. I spent a full weekend in that room once. No lights, no food, just a bucket. I thought I was going to die in there after that. I stopped fighting back. That's when he said I was finally ready to be placed. Like I was Kurt or something. Rachel felt her throat tighten. And then what? They sent me to a different group home. In Scranton. I didn't speak for a year. No one ever asked what happened at ST. Yeliers. They just assumed I was a problem kid. You'd be surprised how quickly people stop asking questions when they think you're broken. Rachel reached across the table and gently slid a napkin closer. Would you be willing to make a statement? Officially? Lucille shook her head. You don't understand. People have tried. You think I'm the only one who wanted to tell someone? St. Yeliers is protested. The board has money, donors, politicians. They bury things. Kids disappear and no one bats an eye. She glanced down. Shadow. But that dog is the first one. Whoever barked back. Later that night, Rachel sat on her apartment floor, her laptop open, files spread around her like a chaotic jigsaw puzzle. She'd begun referring names, kids transferred out of St. Yeliers over the past 20 years. The pattern was alarming. Every 4 years, a handful of children with behavioral issues would be quietly moved. No formal complaint, no record of mistreatment. Just gone. She started making calls. Some numbers were disconnected, others went to voicemail. A few people hung up. The moment she mentioned St. Yeliers. But around midnight, her phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. I remember the quiet room, too. Italk. Attached was a name, killer previous, and an address. Only 30 minutes away. The next afternoon, Rachel drove to a mechanics garage tucked off Route 81. Killer was tall, late 20s, grease-stained jeans, and a shaved head. He stood beside a lifted Chevy truck holding a wrench like he was an extension of his arm. You the cop? He asked when she approached. I'm Rachel to. This is Shadow. The dog ujegiet once, polite. But focused. Killer wiped his hands on a rack. Didn't think anyone would care. Not after all these years. Rachel gave a half smile. We care now. He exhaled deeply. I was at St. Yeliers. From age 6 to 11. That place taught me how to lie to survive. How to smile when you were scared. How to pretend nothing happened. Did you know Lucille? Caleb nodded. She was quiet. Smart too. Everything. The director hated kids who saw too much. Rachel pulled out her notebook. Can you describe what happened to you? Caleb's jaw tightened. They locked me in that room for waking the dead. First time AT was 2 hours. Next time overnight. No blanket, no light. Nothing. He looked away, as distant. Once Whitmore caught me stealing food from the kitchen. I was hungry. Tired. Skipped dinner to punish the whole haul. He took me down there himself. Told me I needed to learn consequences. He paused. He brought a belt. Rachel wrote quickly. Did anyone else see? Anyone you remember? My friend Jesse. But he didn't make a tea. Transferred. They said. But I never saw him again. That name stuck with Rachel for the rest of the day. Jesse. She searched archives. Called foster registries, even camped. Social media. No sign, no graduation. Photos, no job listings. AT was like he vanished after age 10. By evening, Rachel was convinced Jesse hasn't transferred. He was silenced and she needed help. Rachel called her captain the next morning. She didn't ask for permission this time. We got two former residents willing to testify. I have photos of the courtroom, shadows, behavioral data, transfer records that don't line up. Year past speculation. Now, he sighed. Rachel, I can't stop you, but I ask. Can't back your fisherly. You want to build a case? You're on your own. Understood. She hung up and stared out the window. Shada stood by the door, tail wagging swiftly. Ready. That afternoon, Rachel drove back to St. Heliers, this time with purpose. She entered through the front gate, clipboard in hand, her badge clipped visibly. She didn't wait for permission. She walked straight to Elaine's office. The case manager jumped slightly when she saw her. I need 10 minutes, Rachel said. Elaine nodded and closed the door. I need a list of any children who were transferred out under disciplinary causes in the past 10 years. Elaine hesitated. That list isn't public. I'm not asking for the board. I'm asking for the kids. Elaine sighed, opened a drawer, and pulled out a faded binder. As Rachel flipped through it, her blood chilled. So many names. One stuck out. Jesse Dalton, age 10. Transferred due to aggressive behavior. No record of placement. No contact information. Rachel closed the binder. I need to see the storage room. Elaine's eyes widened. The one with the closet. Yes. They walked in silence down the east hallway. Past the old murals, past the broken fire extinguisher box. Shadows ears twitched before they even reached the door. He started to growl. Rachel knelt beside him. What is it, boy? He sniffed the floor. Ten the door. Ten. The wall beside it. Suddenly, he began to bark. Not at the door. At the wall. Rachel stood, pressed her hand to the surface. Solid drywall. She turned to Elaine. This wall. Has it always been here? Elaine looked confused. I think so. Rachel grabbed her flashlight and shined it across the corner edge where the drywall didn't quite meet the frame. And there, in the slimmest sliver of space, was something she hadn't expected. Scratches on the inside, tiny, frantic claw marks. Like someone had tried to break out. Rachel's voice shook. This isn't a wall. This was built to seal something. Elaine looked pale. Oh my God. Shadow continued to bark. And behind that wall, Rachel could almost hear the truth. Still echoing. Still trapped, still waiting to be set free. The scratching marks on the wall. Yearing old. That was the first thing Rachel Langley realized as she ran her fingertips across the room. The drywall was slightly warped where my story had crept in, meaning the inside wasn't sealed, ertiged, and the scratches, jagged, short, disparate, as if whoever had made them wasn't clawing at first, but trying to write. She knelt and shone her flashlight closer. Her heart skipped a beat. Carved faintly between the scratches were our letters just caught through her like ice. Jesse Dalton, the boy who transferred, the boy killer never saw her again. Elaine stutei fu feedback. Covering her mouth, as white. No ani supposet to be in there. That. All was part of a renovation 6 years. Ergo. I just assumed. You assumed a lot. Rachel said quietly. She stood trying to keep her voice steady. This isn't just negligence, Elaine. It's a crime scene. Sheda growled again, nas now pressed to the lower right corner of the wall, where the scent must have been strongest. He scratched at the baseboard, whining desperately. Rachel. Knew what had to be done. I need to get this wall painted today. Elaine hesitated. If the board finds out, I don't care about the board. I care about the boy who might be behind that wall. Rachel called her most trusted contact. Tom and Gwen, a retired crime scene investigator turned freelance consultant. He had her a few favors from an old child trafficking case they worked together years ago. Within the hour, Tom arrived at the in a roster to white worn packed whispertably. Gear. He stepped out, squinting at the building like it was a crime lab he never expected to return to. Just, he muttered as Rachel led him down the east hall. They built over it. Looks like it. Tom ran a handheld scanner over the wall and nodded. Hollow space behind here. Roughly 5 by 8 ft. No insulation, just a pocket. And here. He tapped a corner. This isn't taped correctly. Sloppy work. Someone rushed this. Rachel. Exerlit. Can you open it without causing a scene? Tom gave a thin smile. You brought me in, didn't you? 2 hours later, after rerouting Steve and to sink Sheda as a distraction with the kids in the courtyard, Tom carefully removed the drywall panel, cutting through the makeshift screws and weakened tape. The wall creaked open like a door to a long-forgotten secret. Inside, dust hung in the air like fog. Rachel stepped forward, flashlight sweeping the space. It wasn't a room. It was a crawl chamber, just high enough for a child to sit upright. Mold in the corners.